We are going to call the meeting to order, and Lori is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
If you would, please stand.
Thank you, Lori.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Charlie, may I say one thing?
Yes, ma'am.
So the Manatee County Bar started saying the Pledge of Allegiance at our meetings in September of 2001.
Oh, nice. All right.
So,
thank you very much.
thanks.
I didn't remember that. I want to welcome Jim Pulaski, Sr. He is the Vice President of Operations, and Gary Hennis, Chief Operating Officer of Westminster Community of Bradenton. Chris Perkins of South State Bank. Of course, Charles Clapsaddle and the METV team. We also have Judge Smith, Judge Dees. Michael Gallen has graced us today. Thank you, Michael. And we also have Emily Leakahall. Oh, is that okay? I'm going to work on that name. Thank you to our annual sponsors, Westminster Communities of Bradenton, South State Bank, Bar Prep Hero, Firkins Automotive, Law Pay, and Lucenti Associates. Everybody, you may have noticed that Westminster Community of Bradenton has a table set up in the back. These folks are very nice. They are one of our sponsors, and one day we're all probably going to need them. So I suggest we go back there and meet them. All right? I hope not, but maybe. Please make sure you're reading your weekly e-blast, news you can use for events and updates, and following us on Facebook. Our new year begins July 1st, and new dues renewals have been sent out via email. Please check your emails. If you pay your dues by July 10th, you will be entered into a drawing for a $50 gift card. If you are interested in chairing an NCBA section or committee for the upcoming bar year, please contact Grace Ann as soon as possible via email, or complete the form at your table and give it to Grace Ann before you leave today. We have the election of officers today, officers and directors. I want to thank Alexander St. Paul, who I understand is not here today. I think she's somewhere that's better than this. And Alex was instrumental in getting me here and getting me to do this job, and I can't thank her enough because I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Greg Hagopian has done a tremendous job. Greg is one of the people that when we taught classes, Greg would take an entire day or 2 days and teach classes 2 days in a row. He's really given a lot back to our community. And of course, is Rebecca Proctor here? Rebecca, I don't see Rebecca, but Rebecca has also been amazing. I'd like to read the slate of officers and directors for the upcoming year. And I guess as I read your name, if you would come on up. The slate was previously presented to the membership and approved at the Law Day meeting last month. So the MCBA Board of Directors slate for 2021-2022 is thankfully Steve Dye, our president. Where's Steve? There he is. So come on up, Steve. As everybody would start coming up, I'd appreciate it. Faith Brown is our president-elect. David Wilcox will be our treasurer. Brian Eiton will be our secretary. I will be the immediate past president. Dustin Wagner will be our Young Lawyers Division president. Congratulations, Dustin. And we have Andre Perrone as a director, Aaron Crittenden as a director, Alexandria Nicodemi as a director, Mary Levine, and James Lynch, and Stacy Maloney as directors. Thank you, everyone. All right, I have to call for a vote now, so all in favor of this proposed slate, please say yay. Yay. All opposed? All right, unanimous. So we have a new board, and congratulations to our newly elected board. We're also going to have our Young Lawyers Division take the oath of office, and as I previously mentioned, that includes Dustin Wagner, our president. Congratulations, Dustin. Grace Reeves, our president-elect. Kate Fall, our secretary. Brandon Robinson, our treasurer. Alexandria Nicodemi, our past president. Sierra Butler, Director. Aaron Crittenden, Director. Jay Horn, Director. Is Jay here today? I didn't see Jay. All right. Jamie Worley, Director. And I'm afraid Anisli Mena. I apologize. I'll say it better next time, I swear. Yeah, Annie. Patrick Barnes, Director. Luis Silva, Director. And Carrie Martin, Director. And Judge Gilbert Smith has graciously agreed to administer the oath of office to all 2021-2022 officers and directors, including the Young Lawyers Division. So, Judge Smith, I appreciate it if you'd take it away.
Okay, could I ask all of you to raise your right hand? I do solemnly swear.
I do solemnly swear
that I will support.
that I will support,
Protect and defend.
protect, and defend
The Constitution of Government.
the Constitution of Government
Of the United States.
of the United
And the
States
state of Florida.
and the state of
That
Florida,
I am qualified.
that I am qualified
To hold office. Under the bylaws.
under the bylaws
Of the Manatee County Bar Association.
of the Manatee County Bar Association,
And that I will well and faithfully.
and that I will well and faithfully
Perform the duties of the office.
perform the duties of the office
Of the Manatee County Bar Association.
of the Manatee County Bar Association,
Upon which I am about to enter.
upon which I am about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Gilbert. And I think everyone can go sit. Thank you, folks, for coming. And Steve, I'm going to pass the gavel to you, brother. It's all yours. Congratulations.
Well, welcome everybody. Isn't it great to be back here live and at our old meeting grounds? No masks. First, I want to thank Judge Smith for administering the oath of office. That is such a nice touch. We really appreciate it. I'm very excited to start this new year after serving 2 years as president-elect. And I want to thank Charlie and the rest of the board for also serving 2 years. I'm sure that'll go in Gilbert's chronicles as a historical event. Charlie worked really hard, even though you couldn't tell. But the bar did still function. It's actually really more difficult for organization to function during the pandemic, but we did it, and Charlie was a leader through that, and like I said, he worked pretty hard. He didn't work as hard as the rest of us, but he worked pretty hard. Anyway, Charlie, if you will come up here for a minute. Yes, sir. I'm supposed to give you something. All right. So it's tradition and my honor to present you with this plaque with the gavel. You don't get two of these for being president 2 years, but anyway.
It does say 2019 to 2021, so we're good.
It is. It's a collector's item. So everybody, could you join me in thanking Charlie? All right. I need Dustin Wagner. Dustin's going to make 2 presentations to immediate YLD past president, Alexandria Nicodemi, and past president to Melissa Casanova.
So Dustin Wagner, the new president of the Manatee Young Lawyers. Appreciate your attention today. I have the privilege of presenting Melissa Casanova and Alex Nicodemi with plaques of appreciation. Unfortunately, Melissa's not here. Somebody want to go check the parking lot maybe? Anyways, we'll get that to her. But Alex, if you don't mind coming up, Alex was the YLD president for the 2020-2021 term, and Melissa was the YLD president for the 2019-2020 term. great job. I'm going to embarrass Alex a little bit more. She was recently appointed to the Florida Bar YLD Board of Governors. So congratulations again. It's a very nice job. I'm sure you'll make us proud. Real quickly, just want to say a few things about the upcoming YLD term. First off, this is going to be an exciting year for us. We have a few fresh faces on board that are ready to help us kick butt. Thank you to Louis Silva and Patrick Barnes as new members, ready to jump into the action, so we appreciate that. Some of the events that we're working on we're gonna start off with the Big Brothers Big Sisters Back to School drive, and then focus on a food drive for FELT, which is the Feeding Empty Little Tummies organization. After that, we thought it would be kind of a unique thing to reach out to our elderly community. A lot of folks that were isolated during the pandemic, we want to get them involved with an elderly edition of Art in the Courthouse. So that'll be a lot of fun, hopefully. After that, we're aiming to do a 5K charity event along the Riverwalk, followed by a social downtown for those that can read between the lines. Also, we're hoping to do another paintball event this year. And I thought it'd be a really good idea to do a judges versus lawyers matchup. We know that there's a lot of grievances that can't always be settled in the courtroom. Did you hear that, Judge Ferentz? But anyways, we're going to have a fun year. It's going to be exciting. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Dustin. You guys got a great year planned. I think Judge Ferentz, though, uses a sword rather than a paintball gun. Sir Ferentz. All right, next, Judge Gilbert Smith will come back up, I believe, and we're going to have our history lesson. Couple slides. You have 5 minutes. Your Honor, it's all yours.
Well, I didn't get any instruction on this, so let's see how this works out. And Judge Ferentz and Cliff are their neck's gonna hurt. Okay, it's so good to be back here. As Steve has said, it's just been a long time since we've been back at the pier for our meetings and for our annual meetings. It's exciting to be here. I just going to talk to you a little bit about some Manatee County history, and this photograph is a luncheon meeting at the Manatee River Kiwanis Club at the dining room at the Oaks Hotel. There are several men in the crowd who are members of this club, and all of you, the ones closer, of course, should be able to see somebody they recognize. Today is such a historic day. Today is a day which reminds us of the rich history of this bar association. When Steve Dye is sworn in, as he was just done, he will be the third Dye to lead this bar association, after his grandfather served in 1926 and again in 1957. And his father served in 1961. That would have been going backwards. This is a picture of Dewey Dye Sr. in 1922. And this is, he had just gotten out of law school. The article that went along with this picture described him as a brilliant lawyer. And he had been practicing now for quite a few years. And he practiced in the building where Steve practices today. The next slide. Now, this is a picture looking west at the intersection of Manatee Avenue and Main Street. Now, on the right-hand side, you can see the Fuller Building, which was also called the Stone Building, and that is that's where the dye firm started, and that's where Steve practices today. And you can see that it's a stone building that's somewhat plain looking. It has the front that also on Main Street that's where the door is. And let's look at another slide. Now, this is Dewey Dye Sr., who we've just seen now 2 photographs of. And this is his law office in the stone building, the Fuller Building. And it's fairly plain, but it was typical of lawyers in that day. He started with a lawyer by the name of Charles Curry, and he took over his practice when Mr. Curry died after Dewey Dye Sr. graduated from law school and started working with him. This is where Dewey Dye Sr. was when he was president of this bar association. This is where he worked, and this is where he had board of directors meetings. He would have those at least twice a month in his office. Next slide. Now, I wanted to show you this because this is just a few years later that the slide I just showed you, the Fuller Building, the stone building. And you can see now that they've got some window coverings. They've now got a door on facing Manatee Avenue. There's one on Main Street also. But it's starting to look more like the building we all know today. And again, that's where Steve practices at this time. The next slide is a photo of Dewey Dye Jr. with his father, Dewey Dye Sr. And Dewey Dye Jr. started working with his father after serving in the Navy in World War II and then finishing law school. And then again, he went into the service and served in the Korean War before he came back out and practicing law. And this is a picture, and it's somewhat hard for you in the back to see, but they're standing in front of a window. In the back of the window, that's the professional building, so it's over towards the courthouses behind them, and it says on the window, "Dye and Die." So that's a very historic picture of Steve's grandfather and father. Now, the Dyes were very interested in this organization being successful and helping lawyers. And so they believed in Manatee County that this bar association should play a part in improving the community for everyone. And if we'll go to the next slide, one of the things that Dewey Dye Jr. did was to make sure that if people needed representation or needed to learn the law, they could. This photograph is the Manatee National Bank, which a lot of you don't know what that is. It then became Southeast National Bank, and also on the corner of 9th Street and Manatee Avenue. The building's still there. Not sure what's in that building now, but it's still there. There are planned, I think, developments for residential condos, I believe, there, or apartments that may be in our future. But this is where the dye firm moved to in the 1960. And so they moved from the building they were in, the stone building, the Fuller Building, into this building where they were at many years. And Steve and I actually have a link because my father worked for and with his grandfather and father in this building before my dad was appointed to the bench. Go to the next slide. So Dewey Dye Jr. had such bold ideas for this bar association. And in 1963 and then in 1974, they used to have legal forums where they would invite many lawyers from this bar association to sit in a panel. And they would have these at the Bell Auditorium at the Braden Trailer Park. And they would invite people, and then they would talk about legal issues that were facing people every day and try to educate them. And when they would have these forums, they would have over 1,000 people show up, and for each one of those. And this was quite bold, and it was something that this bar association has done legal clinics before, and it might be something that this bar association may want to do in the future. So next slide. And of course, in the 80s, Steve Dye joins the firm as a young man and carries on the tradition with his father, where he worked for, where he still works and worked with his dad for many, many years learning the trade. So thank you very much, and I'll give you some history in the next few months.
Thank you, Gilbert. I had not seen that presentation. I enjoyed it. The Manatee Bank building, they added, I think, 3 floors later to that building, which was unusual. All right. Next, it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker today, if I can pronounce her name. We're very happy you're here. Emily Lakahall? Lakahall? All right. I'll never get that right. Emily was born and raised in Denver, Colorado. She's got an interesting background. She studied broadcast journalism at Colorado State University. Her law school search took her to Minneapolis, and she received her law degree from the University of Minnesota. While in law school, she spent 2.5 years interning in the legal department for the Minnesota Vikings. Boo. The connections she made in Minnesota, though, brought her to Daytona Beach, Florida, right after graduation, where she served as corporate counsel for the Ladies Professional Golf Association, and they're actually tougher than the Minnesota Vikings. Sorry, I had to do that. In 2019, she transitioned back to the NFL and is now legal counsel for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers. She is one of 2 attorneys for the company and handles all commercial transactions and risk management for the team, as well as oversees litigation, employment matters, and security compliance. Let's all welcome Emily.
All right. Thank you guys for having me today. Full transparency, you guys actually wanted Dan, my boss, Dan Molaski, the chief legal officer, but he is out of the country. He's on vacation for the next couple of weeks. So you have me, and I'm excited to be here. Yeah, as it was mentioned, I am not from Florida, so I've been here about 5 years now. Lived on Daytona side, Orlando side, moved to Tampa about 2.5 years ago, and love this side of the coast a lot more than where I was. This presentation today is, and sorry if it's a repeat for some of you that have maybe came to the Sarasota County Bar Association meeting earlier this month. Dan presented at that, and he presented something similar, but I made the presentation first. So I'm going to use the same type of presentation and just give it from my perspective. A career in sports was kind of always the goal for me. So I wanted to be a sports reporter at first. Worked for a couple sports stations while in college. Realized I was not good at it. Realized it wasn't what I expected, which is great. That's what internships are for, right? You see if you can picture yourself in that job. And realized I wanted to do something else. So junior year of college, kind of transitioned out of that and said, I want to be a sports agent. I want to represent clients, still on that sports track. Most sports agents, especially that represent NFL clients, are lawyers. So the path was law school next. That took me to law school, where I got in really early with the Vikings, thankfully, and I realized I didn't want to go the agent path when I was team side, and have been doing in-house work ever since. So it's kind of great, the path that it took me on. Let's see here, what else before we get this started? So we have 2 attorneys. We have our chief legal and me, and we have one paralegal who helps with contract coordinator. So my day to day is pretty much drafting contracts. About 80% of my job is drafting contracts all day. Sponsorship, vendors, licenses, whatever needs to be signed comes through me. So it's a lot. It's about maybe a couple thousand a year that we sign, and a lot of it is standard templates, whether it's suite agreements or Hall of Fame club. That doesn't really change much. We don't really negotiate those much, but still comes through us, and the templates start with us. So quite a big amount of contracts, especially right now. This is our busy season for legal. Off season is our season, basically, where just all the renewals are coming in. Obviously, Super Bowl champions, you get a lot of sponsors that want to sign up with you and a lot of renewals. So it has been extremely busy off season. We shut down, and most of the NFL does shut down next week completely. So it's a great time, but most people are out right now. So it's starting to slow down as we prepare for training camp at the end of July. All right? So I'll get this started. Like I said, some of this may be a repeat, so I apologize if you've already seen this presentation. In staff meetings, we always start with a video, and I'm sorry if it's not very clear for everybody in the room, but we start with a video kind of to get the crowd going. So every staff meeting, usually we'll have a Friday staff meeting before games, and so our COO will always present something Buccaneers produced. So.
Tom Brady has an agreement in principle to join the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as their new quarterback.
This was a very smart and, for me, unexpected move from Brady.
Brady and Breeze play twice a year. My gosh.
Now to growing concerns about the deadly coronavirus officially hitting the U.S. Here's what we know.
We try to provide you a distraction from it, but there will be overlap between COVID-19 and the National Football League.
Whoever stays healthiest and safest this year, that is who wins.
Go! I think that they are a playoff team. I think it's a wild card situation. I don't know if they can go from a wild card spot to the Super Bowl.
The Saints are favored. The Saints have won it 3 years in a row, and the Saints may be the best team in the NFC.
I still believe in Bruce Arians, and I think they have the pieces to be an awfully good football team.
He's got it for the touchdown.
Rojo up the gut, touchdown Tampa Bay.
And down he goes. Aaron Rodgers gets sacked again. Devin White.
Look, man, you guys got a good team.
Yeah, you too. See, baby.
So Tampa has now lost 2 in a row.
The Buccaneers are the story, Rex, as they continue to struggle.
They're running out of road here. They've got to get it figured out.
Nobody bounces back like Brady. You look at the number, he has a 787 winning percentage immediately following an in-season loss.
And for the first time in 13 years, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are headed to the NFL playoffs.
Intercepted to the 42-yard line.
Look out from behind. He gets brought down.
Caught ball, touchdown Tampa Bay.
2nd and 9 now. This one's picked. Intercepted by the Bucs. This one's up for grabs and picked.
Gets a block to the right side. Now another block just flushed out. He's sacked at the 35-yard line. That's Scotty Miller in the open. Makes the catch. Touchdown Tampa Bay.
The first franchise in the history of the NFL who will play in the Super Bowl in its home stadium.
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have a second Super Bowl title in franchise history.
To hold Breeze, Rodgers, and Mahomes at bay. Has it ever been harder? Ever?
We're going for 2. All right, we're going for 2, and we ain't stopping.
They had systematically found a way to bring back the players that they wanted to bring back.
It is kind of scary when you think about what they could do.
All right, so I don't know if you guys are familiar, but how football works. Our fiscal year is a little different. So our fiscal year starts sometime in March. So it'll start March, and then that kicks off the league year. And what that means usually is, free agents can be signed, trades can become official, and there's some salary cap implications that take effect at the beginning of that year. So that's mainly football side, right? But we use that league year as our kickoff as well. So in 2020, the league year started March 18th. So, right when things were getting a little strange, and maybe a little bit after that. But Our last normal event in 2020 that went on as scheduled was the 2020 Combine in Indianapolis, which is, for those that don't know, where all the top prospects go, showcase their skills, whether college or they were otherwise professionals somewhere else. So that was early March, so March 3rd, 4th, 5th in Indianapolis. And then around this time, from preparing for our next league year, in the legal department, our main concern was about the CBA. So the collective bargaining agreement between between the players union and the NFL including all of the clubs. The biggest thing on our mind was that expiring and not being able to reach a new CBA. So we really did start pretty early, right after our season. So we didn't make the playoffs last year, our 2019. So our season ended, and we were automatically getting ready for the next season. And we are going through every contract, every agreement we have, whether coaches, sponsors, vendors, everything. Our main concern was if players strike, if there's a lockout, if we have to cancel games, if we have to cancel a season, if we have to have replacement players, what happens? Ownership wanted a complete breakdown of our risk and where we stood in those events. And to be honest, our templates, and we usually start on our own paper, but our templates were pretty good as it related to force majeure in the strike lockout scenario. So, we've always been, that can always just be a really high possibility. But this was a big deal for us, the CBA was ending and we had no idea, so that was the last event. And I remember going through these charts early March with Dan, my boss, and just, by revenue number or by, can we get out of this one? Can we not, what would be the impact to our organization? And then, the real storm hits, right? COVID. I think I have the dates here. March 11th, when the NBA shut down, I think that was the wake-up call in sports, at least. They suspended the game because of a positive COVID test before that Utah Jazz game. And so that was March 11th. March 12th, Dan brought our team into the office and said, you guys have 24 hours to pack up and get out of here, basically. Take everything you need. We'll figure out the rest as we go. He said, who knows when we'll be allowed back in. I think this is pretty similar across the board for a lot of people. Whether it was a week, a month, a year, and I'm still actually partially at home. So most of the office is still remote, so we're still in the remote life. But our whole company completely moved remote within 24 hours, and that was March 12th. So we're still not at that league year yet. We're still gearing up for everything. And who knew what the next steps were. So, and a lot of companies adapted, I feel like, pretty well to going fully remote. I was actually very surprised at our company. We were not a typically remote company. Everything happens at our training facility. We have our meetings, we have our players, our coaches, our practices are there, we eat there, we work out there. Everything happened there. We were not set up to be remote as quick as we needed it to, but it worked out. We had to go buy laptops for people. We had to provide Wi-Fi or phone stipends. We had to figure out remote time cards. Typically, our time cards you can only punch in on our Wi-Fi within the facility. So a lot of things had to change. We had to set up Zoom accounts. None of us had that because, again, we didn't have anybody outside of our facility. And so that was the interesting part. When I first got to, it's hard to see, but my view is downtown Tampa, which I love. It saved me through COVID, but I live in a studio, so 300 square feet for the last year and a half was my kitchen, my office, my gym, my bedroom, but it still had a good view. So that's been my setup since, and it hasn't really changed much. So it was interesting to see that. I think everybody did adapt, and I saw it across every industry that we worked with. Everybody adapted very well. And we had to struggle just like everyone else to get PPE for the people that were essential to stay in the office and whatnot. Early on, when I first started, the goal was we needed a contract management system. So it was a very manual process at first. We had Excel spreadsheets, emails came in saying they needed a contract, they drafted it and tracked it in Excel. So when Dan Molaski started, he wanted a contract management system in. He brought me in and we got it finalized. It took about 8 months. So my first 8 months or so was just getting this contract management system set up. So thankfully, we had that up and running as of probably January 2020. So we were only a couple months in of people using it. But thankfully, we were set up and ready for when we had to go remote. Honestly, we were still doing paper signatures up until we had that, and we, DocuSign integration, and it integrates with our Salesforce and templates, and it's just been a huge savior. And like searching all these contracts, it's easy for me to just plug in things. So that saved me a ton of time, and I'm so grateful that we had that set up before everything hit. What else on this one? Oh, and then, so we had COVID, everything going on with COVID, and then you throw in, all of a sudden, the news is breaking about Tom Brady. And I think we were hearing it maybe a week, and I know this was always a possibility. I think our team was always throwing out Tom Brady was a possibility very early on while we were still in our 2019 season. But the rumors started coming out, okay, guys, this may happen. And again, this was our first week at home remote for a company that just doesn't do remote yet, and now we're pros at it. But so it was very interesting, automatic demand, even despite the uncertainty, automatic demand for tickets, sponsorships, renewals. It went through the roof. So it was a very busy off season for 2020, especially that first few months where I am preparing spreadsheets and contingency plans, but I'm also, drafting sponsors and tickets as if we are full go for 2020. So it was a very interesting time, both of my worlds just kind of splitting there. And then, of course, we didn't stop there. We went for other big-time players, Rob and Leonard Fournette, LaShawn McCoy, and Antonio Brown, all big names. And I get the question a lot about the football side. Do we draft player contracts? We have nothing to do with the player contracts. So the CBA already has a pre-negotiated player contract that is I don't want to say fill in the blank. It's definitely more into it than that. It's more the money. It's more the negotiated money and the bonuses that go into play. So we have a salary cap expert, Mike Greenberg, who's director of player personnel, that handles all player contracts. So we do coaches, we do the doctors, physical therapists, scouts. So we do those agreements, cheerleaders, but all the player agreements are with a different department. And I think that's pretty common across the industry. Most NFL teams will keep football and business fairly separate. So I didn't do Tom Brady's contract, but I've gotten to work with his agent on marketing deals, or we do appearance agreements for players, or we'll do their suites and different things. We do some foundation stuff. A lot of players have their own foundations. So we get to still work, but not with the actual player contract. All right. So our schedule, May 7th was when the schedule released in 2020. And still a weird time, right? Nobody knows what will happen. I feel like we were lucky that where COVID fell, it wasn't the middle of our season like the NBA or the NFL or the NHL, WNBA. We had time, and we kept telling ourselves, "There's plenty of time. This will be gone by then. We'll be full capacity," and it truly was our plan. And so May 7th schedule releases. We get 5 primetime games, which is the league max. So you can only get 5 in a year. And in 2019, we only had 1. And that's just because everybody gets a Thursday night game. So it was a change. It was a drastic change to our whole organization. And it brought so much more brand exposure to us and also so much more risk, to make sure that we were buttoned up everywhere that we could be. But again, a weird time, It was hard not to lose sight of what was going on. in the world with, unemployment, are people dying, and racial inequality and all this. And players kind of had to ask themselves, is this morally or ethically right to play? Should I be playing this year? And if we do play, how can we do it safely? How can we make a difference and an impact? And so that never left our minds. But so we had, I don't know if you guys remember Tom Brady having to sneak around Tampa to practice, but he couldn't go to any of the parks. He did get in trouble for going to a park, it was weird times, right? But and then him and his teammates would meet at local high schools to practice. We sent out, I think it was every player got about $1,500 worth of exercise equipment that we sent out so that they could work out, because all the gyms were closed. Everything was moved remote. So it was just an interesting time. Around this time, the NFL and the Players Association, their union, entered into this working MOU to say anything that we do for 2020 is governed by this document. It is going to be agreed on by us together, and that's a little different because usually the league handles a lot of it. So this was collaborative, where both sides had to agree, which meant it was a lot, and it was documents coming every week with changes to protocols and safety and what we are allowed and not allowed to do. So definitely an interesting time. So in July, I'm sure a lot of you saw that teams started a bubble. Our league started a bubble, the NBA, the NHL, WNBA, and this was it is fantastic that they pulled it off, and we were really happy to see sports back. But we were constantly thinking, how can you bubble a football team? How can you take this same concept and put it for football? We just couldn't see it. We couldn't see that happening. And so that was but it never was off the table. I think the whole season we kept thinking, dead season when things were back on red alert, we thought maybe we'll have to go to a bubble. We'll all have to be in one city. So this was about 2 months before we're supposed to start, and it's still not looking good for us. But again, we are still selling, and the demand was there. And so we were still going on like nothing, that it'll be full normal going into the season. Well, we couldn't really do that. So safely reopening. So this was quite the process. So like I said, there was tons of documents from the league about how our headquarters had to look, had to be. One of the reasons we're not back in the office right now is because we had to completely take out offices, take out cubes for an entire department can't come back, because we had to move in coaches to be socially distant. So everything had to be socially distant. We didn't have big enough meeting rooms, so we had to move them into just office space. We had to build, it's hard to see, but we had to build an entire locker room outside, which we put showers because we didn't have enough to be socially distanced inside. We had to put an entire locker room in our indoor facility. So it just was a lot of prep work. We had to do temperature scans, which I'm sure you're all used to now walking in, and then the temperature reads you. Daily testing, every player, coach. We did it by a tiered status. So if you were tier 1 or tier 2, which meant you're mainly football personnel or you had to be around football personnel, you had to be tested every day, game days, and even on bye weeks. So it was a lot of testing. We actually had our own testing facility right on site. We hired a facility to just come, and 24 hours we were testing there. Okay, and then even to the stadium. So some of the good things, there's been some positives of COVID, right? And I think a lot of it for the stadium we may still use going past this year and next. So the stadium protocols were about the same. I think it was a little different because the Bucs don't own the stadium. We work with the city. Tampa Sports Authority owns it. So it was weekly meetings with Tampa Sports Authority to make sure we were in compliant with all the NFL documents to reopen. The NFL left it up to each individual club if they wanted to host fans, and each club was kind of tied to their state. So good thing for us, at least, good or bad, we lived in Florida, and so we chose to host fans, and to do it safely, we had to do a lot of different renovations to the stadium. And this was about $10 million worth of upgrades and improvements to get our stadium compliant. And it also, we were hosting the Super Bowl that year, so we knew that no matter what, we had to make that investment to pull off the game as well. So we went with masks, obviously, cashless. We went completely cashless. We got reverse ATMs, so you can come in and put it on a card. We went completely paperless, so everything's on your phone, scanning tickets. We gave out no paper tickets anymore. We had to completely shut down seats physically, so the NFL needed them to be covered or locked or somehow disabled. So we put zip ties around seats, and you had to be sitting in pods. I don't know if anybody went to a game last year, but they were in 2, 4, and 6 pods. That's how you had to sit. So stuff like that. We did, for those that read their back of their tickets, that is us. We revamped our ticket terms so many times, I feel like, throughout the summer, just to make sure. We had no idea. The Tort Reform Act didn't get passed until after the season, so we had no idea, what we could be liable for, and it was a big concern for our ownership. So we had a health assessment that you had to fill out, and you got a green check or a red X if you were allowed in based on how you answered that health assessment. So you just had to scan it when you got in, and it was, to pull off that administratively, it was tough. Not everybody has phones, and we had to do this for staff as well. So all stadium staff had to do it. So it was a lot to pull off to get people in the stands. But it worked out. What else was on here? Oh, we had to change up our season tickets as well. So our season ticket, and that meant changing their agreements. So we had to amend a lot of stuff because they only got 3 games last year. So we tried to divvy it up so that everybody got an equal amount. And we had a lot more season pass holders last year after we got Tom Brady. So it was really tough to figure out the best and the most fairest way to do that. But that's how we did. So the next couple slides are just some numbers that the NFL provided, just kind of an overall, and to give you guys context how the season went. So 1.2 million fans came to an NFL game last year, which is a lot. And then for the Super Bowl, I think 38% is what the capacity was at for Super Bowl. We were at about 24% capacity for most of our games. The first game, we decided not to go with fans. It was the strangest feeling. Staff was there just to kind of look around and see what we needed to do. There was nobody else allowed in but us, so it was 100 people, and the weirdest feeling. It just felt so strange and quiet. So that was game 1, and after that, we started hosting fans, and we gradually grew and grew, and I think the most we got to was about 24 or 25% in our stadium. Then at the Super Bowl, they had 38%, which was a lot of vaccinated healthcare workers, which was great. We also got this, it's called Global Biorisk Advisory Council certification for our stadium, which was due to our upgrades and all of our safety and cleanliness. We got this certification for our stadium, and a handful of other stadiums did as well. But that was big for us, especially for being the host of the Super Bowl. And then no super spreader events. I think this was a big one for us that we were really glad to see that there was no link that our games were super spreaders, that the cases rose any higher than it did elsewhere with fans, with teams that did not host fans. And fan satisfaction was at an all-time high, they say. The Bucs actually got #1 for customer service this past year. So I think fans were okay, they were fine, and everybody was following protocols, which was great. And this was the players. I think players and coaches deserve a lot of credit here because they got tested a lot, right? They got tested every day, like I said, and really, really low positivity rate between the season. And that just shows, the protocols were working, and it was very strict for them. They couldn't do much. They couldn't go out. They couldn't be in big groups. some of them actually stayed in hotels. We had hotels for staff if they wanted the whole season and were away from their families. So tough year for the players. And so definitely this goes out. This is definitely they did a really good job getting us through this season. Okay, so Super Bowl. Super Bowl is interesting. Before we were playing in it, I think the Super Bowl, so it's not our event, right? It's not the Bucs event. It's not Tampa Sports Authority's event. It's the NFL's event. They hired the Tampa Sports Commission to help run things. But we were involved to an extent. We had some inventory that we could sell. So certain things with the Super Bowl that hit our department, we had sweet inventory that we could sell. So those agreements we did. We had certain sponsorship. So we have conflicts with certain league sponsors and team sponsors. So we had to work that out with signage in the stadium. And we had in certain enforcement meetings. So the league leaned on us legals over security. So counterfeit merch, counterfeit tickets, all that stuff. We had meetings throughout the year just to make sure, we're all on the same page as the Super Bowl was approaching. Fast forwarding to actually playing in the Super Bowl was a little bit different. It was a crazy 2 weeks. Our chief marketing officer pulled us all in for a meeting one day, and you could just tell we're also like working crazy hours trying to figure out, what the next 2 weeks is going to be like. And he says, you know what, guys, like I've worked my whole life to work this hard. And it's true, we all wanted to get to this point. So what's another couple weeks? But it was definitely a busy couple weeks preparing. We already had, as the host city, we wanted to host events. It got postponed. A lot of stuff did get postponed because of COVID. But, with contracts for certain event venues, hotels, what have you. But to actually host it was a little bit different. We worked with the league a lot because the league's main concern was they wanted to keep this a neutral game as much as possible. So I'm sure you guys saw the fire cannons and what songs can play. Everything had to be 50-50, completely equal. And so that was a big given push there because, it was our home city. And they even stopped, I think during the game, they even stopped playing our song after every touchdown because it just sounded too much like a home game for us. So it was a very interesting, the NFL definitely, wasn't fully prepared for the host city to actually be in it. So it was kind of fun to be on those calls and figure out with the league and our events team what we were going to do as far as the stadium. And then, band contracts, we, had certain performers come and events that we did. It brought a lot of work that week. So it was all fun. I would do it again in a heartbeat, but it was a busy time with new agreements coming in and just making sure we were all good. And we had a lot of counterfeit pop-up shops come up. So we have our local police team that would go, and if they're selling counterfeit merch, what we do there. And so it was an interesting time. And there's still actually up a lot of shops around Tampa. So, and then we won, and it was all fun, and it was a great time. We got to go to the game. The owners gave us all 2 tickets, so it was awesome to be there and to see it all. I don't know what's next. And then the boat parade. The boat parade was fun as well, one of my favorite days of the year. This one came together very fast as well. So we were planning to have our parade on Friday of that week. So we won Sunday. We were going to have the parade Friday. The GM called and said, hey guys, players are leaving, so we got to have the parade tomorrow. This was on Tuesday. The parade needs to be on Wednesday. So we all had about 24-hour notice. So it wasn't just the fans. So we had to get, secure boats. We had to get with the city and get permits and make sure that we had enough Tampa PD in town. So it was a really big push while we're all still kind of recovering from our Sunday hangover. But it was fun. It was worth it. We didn't even know if people would show up, and people did, and it was great. It was a great time, even on such short notice. So for this year, wow, we're already really close. it looks like everybody is ready to go full capacity. It doesn't look like anybody in the league. I think Indy was holding out for a little bit, and I haven't updated this slide yet, but I'm pretty sure Indy is full capacity. They were just waiting for the Indy 500 to see how things went. It doesn't mean that some teams aren't going to be requiring vaccinations or certain PPE or health assessments or what have you. But for the most part, I think everybody's ready to go full 100%, which not everybody hosted fans last year. So there were still several that hosted 0 throughout the year. Some only hosted for their playoff game. So it just varied. But so we're excited that all of them are going to reach 100% next year. And then our schedule's out. We got another 5 primetime games, which is great. We open on Thursday night, and so that'll be fun. And yeah, we're still figuring out terms and conditions and what we're going to require vaccination-wise or not, and masks. We are opening up to fans for training camp, so that'll be like our test run, I think, for how things will go for the stadium. So we're really excited about that. And that's all I have. So if anybody has any questions or wants me to go into anything else, I'd be happy to. Oh.
I just wondered how much player interaction you had.
Yeah. Depends. It depends. Sometimes they just need a notary, and they'll come over to our department and we'll notarize. And sometimes we'll work really closely with them for ticket issues, if they're having ticket issues. You know, we handle workers' comp in our department, so that's a big piece of being in-house with the team. So that obviously is, we're working with the agent more. So, and those are usually past players that we've had. So that's my player interaction there. But for the most part, yeah, we're on pretty separate sides. So unless they need something, we'll see them at lunch maybe. So we all share the same lunchroom. Well, not anymore because of COVID, but hopefully one day I'll get to see Tom Brady walking and grabbing a banana in front of me.
One of your slides said that last year there was 1.2 million fans that attended all of the games across the NFL. What's a normal year for you?
That's a good question for the Bucs. I'm not sure across the league. We have not sold out in a long time, our stadium. So big news for us was we finally just sold out. We just announced that last week. So this is our first year being sold out for the stadium in a very long time. I don't know the number, but Florida market is tough, right? So it's tough to get fans to our games, and if you're not winning, it's even tougher. So definitely not. We definitely had more than we would have non-COVID. So, but COVID definitely still hit us hard. But yeah, we haven't sold out at least.
So what does the Buccaneers feel the return on investment is with Tom Brady?
He's going to retire at like 55, so we're good. No, we have him signed up for 2 more years, so that's good. And that's really good for season ticket holders, suite holders, sponsors, I think. But who knows? Who knows how long he'll go, or, you know, if he wins another, when he wants to hang it up. So, good. Yeah.
Are all of the starting players, defense and offense, returning?
Yes, we returned all. Yeah, that's a big deal. I think that's only happened one time in the NFL, and this was maybe back in the 50s from the Steelers. But yes, we were returning all 22 starters this year, which is huge that we got to do that. Good.
Emily?
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being our speaker today.
Yes.
You did a great job.
Thank you.
Great job on getting Tom Brady to come to the Buccaneers. We want to give you one of our tumblers so that when you're looking out that window, you can have a drink.
Appreciate it. Yes.
And everybody, thank you. Let's give Emily a thanks. All right, I want to get you guys out of here on time. I want to thank Westminster Communities, not just for bringing all the bling, but they also have donated a gift basket So we're going to give that away right now. And the person with the birthday closest to today's date would be the winner. So is there any, do we have anybody? July 1st, he wins. Come on up. Maybe Cliff will keep coming to the meetings now.
I want to personally thank Gilbert for making sure I came today.
Thank you, Cliff. I want to thank Charles Clapsaddle and METV for filming the meeting today at no cost. Our next general membership luncheon is Wednesday, September. Oh, you didn't know that, did you? Our next membership meeting is Wednesday, September 29th, back here at Pier 22. So enjoy your summer. Keep checking your inter alia for updates and events. And I think we're adjourned.
Thank you.